I thought for a minute she might offer to come, is actually what happened. And my first thought was, that's half my freaking show. I said, darn, she can't come. But as anyone could have predicted, she took her pills and went to bed. I do have to give a disclaimer. I've been talking to my kids a little bit, mostly Cassidy, about whether or not it bothers her when I tell a story about her or about her siblings, and she said, well, it's just that when you tell it, it's not true. I explained the art of storytelling to her, and that sometimes, you know, you exaggerate this a little bit, you downplay this, you make yourself more clever. And so she decided, for the sake of art, that it was okay to tell stories about her. But we've all seen Rashomon. Well, maybe 4 people have seen Rashomon. And it's a movie it's 3 acts, and it's told from the perspective of the 3 characters, and each story is completely different. And so that's the way I look at this. This is Rashomon. Everything's Rashomon. It's not 100% true, but what is? We talked about that last month, right?
Yeah.
What's true and what's not true, and it's true to me. So, and I read somewhere that if you tell a story and someone believes it, you made it true. That you just changed history. I know. So as I've done the show, this being the 3rd one, I've been encouraged to maybe start considering doing some stand-up, and so I've been so focused on the comedic aspect of it that each one of these shows is going to be so different because I've been pulled in that direction. And this whole time, this whole last month, as I've been preparing, I'm trying to think of funny stories, and I'm trying to find a happy medium for the final product. Though I am not really 100% sure what that final product will be. I was going to tell you, I put a note to myself that I am wearing Wonder Woman underwear, and if something happens, please tell the EMTs it was a dare. I was texting a friend of mine about the show, and talking about the whole aspect of storytelling and exaggerating some for entertainment purposes. And he was arguing back in kind of the same, but at one point I realized he's arguing the same exact thing I am. He's just using different words, and I'm not sure what the difference here. So I texted potato, potato. And I looked at it and thought, this does not translate. And so I started laughing, and I immediately typed in tomato, tomato to entertain myself. And but just looking at it in text made me laugh harder. So, and like every single thing that happens to me for the last few months, I put that on my show. So I have a weird sense of humor, and I discovered that I had a weird sense of humor when I'm trying to think how old I was. I really couldn't tell you. Maybe 10-ish. And my dad and I were driving down Fraser Street, which is the main drag in Conroe. And there was old folks home on one side of the street, and there was a grocery store on the other side of the street. And almost every time we drove down Fraser, I would see this little old man who was completely hunchbacked, completely bent over like this, walking to or from the grocery store, just right across the street. And I said, oh my God. And my dad goes, bet you he finds a lot of quarters. And I died laughing, and immediately felt bad about it, and then died laughing again. And that's when I realized that I have a sick sense of humor, and it's been nonstop since then. My little brother Jason was the funny one to me. Like, my sister was the pretty one. We talked about that in the first show. Jason was the funny one. And I can remember literally within the first hour after I found out that he died, I got mad because that meant I was going to have to be the funny one. And I said that out loud to my husband, now I'm going to have to be the funny one. And so I have, I just totally lost my train of thought thinking about that moment, which I didn't think about how really tragic it would be to bring up until just now. If you learn. But I like being funny, and I can remember when I first realized that I was funny. And we had a party, Ricky and I had a party, a bunch of friends came over, and at some point for over an hour, I sat in a chair, and everyone at the party was gathered around me as I was talking about God knows what. And after the party, everyone left, and I turned to Ricky and I said, "I'm funny." He goes, "Shit." I had been really afraid you were going to figure that out. I don't know why I was afraid of that, but one of my favorite forms of comedy is being the straight man. Except there is no glory to being the straight man. There's none! I posted on Facebook the other day. It's kind of a bit awkward when a friend of yours posts a picture of his 8-year-old daughter and you realize you have the same skirt. And I threw myself on the sword for that joke. That joke was great. It wasn't exactly the same skirt anyway. Oh, see, there it is. I missed one. So my friends have, several of my friends have done one-woman shows, one-person shows actually, because one of them was a boy. And they had all these sets and music, and they memorized it. It was like 2 hours. One of them had an intermission, and a friend of mine sang and stuff, and I had this is what I have. Because I've been thinking a lot lately about the difference between a grown-up and an adult. and I think there's a big difference. Adults, they have sex, they vote, they drink, they share apartments with like 8 people. But grown-ups, they have 401ks and they have burial plans. And preparation. They have all of these things that maybe sharing the apartment with a whole bunch of people, which is fun. Come on. How many of you kind of wish you still had a whole bunch of roommates? But preparation, I think, is the difference. Realizing that there is next week, and there is next year, and there is 20 years from now. I think I'm kind of somewhere starting to think about being prepared for stuff. I do have ADHD, and so even if I'm thinking, I wonder if I should get a burial plan, it's gone because Facebook. I have, now I'm in a better place financially again, which I was about 4 or 5 years ago, and then I quit to do art. And y'all, if I do that again, it's time for an intervention. It's so easy to spend money now. It is so insanely easy to spend money now. One click is the devil. Who has Amazon Prime? Who has Amazon? It should be called the fuck it button. I kind of want that. And your hand's acting while you're thinking about it. Bam! It is yours. It is yours in that moment. You cannot.
Shopping.
Yes. Don't go home after this. And, but the lessons that you learn as you're growing up are really important. And about my dad, one of my favorite lessons my dad ever taught me is when I think I was about 13 years old, and they were doing the show Chicken Every Sunday at the Crichton. And a very dear friend of mine had the lead, Lisa Bull, and I wanted it because I thought I could do it just as well as she could, even if I wasn't blonde and tiny and darling. And I had memorized it. At some point, I don't know when this happened over the last 25 years, my memory is completely gone. But I knew the whole script. I could sit in the audience and throw out cue lines without a script. It was kind of awesome. What happened to that? And I was on the phone with my dad really late one night. I'm not sure why we were on the phone. Maybe I was living with Mom at the time. But I told Dad, what if she breaks her leg or something? And my dad said, why wish ill on people? Why don't you wish good on people? Why don't you say, instead of her breaking her leg or dying in a fiery crash, that she wins the lottery and she has to fly somewhere really far away to have And that really struck me. My dad has influenced the way that I try to be a good person so much because of things like that. And it's really such a small way to change your head, you know? But that to me, that was one of the first lessons I felt like I learned of thinking like an adult. Now, as an adult and knowing lots of them, I'm unclear as to whether many of them really think like that at all, but I am pretty damn grateful that my dad taught me that. My dad offered, when I graduated from high school, to pay for me to go to college. He took me out to lunch, we sat down, and he told me, look, I have enough money to pay for the first year, you're going to have to get a part-time job probably, but I've got it covered. And I said, no, thanks though, because I'm going to be an actress, so I don't need to go to college. And my dad said, okay, he tried to convince me, and a few months later I got a postcard from Cozumel from my dad that said, thanks! A lot of my early growing up, most of my memories are most firmly tied up with my best friend Melanie. And we decided we wanted to live together. Don't do that with your best friend, y'all. And so we drove all over Conroe, and we were looking for rental houses, and we came across this little tiny house way out in the country, and we fell in love with it, but it was for sale. And Melanie's mom's a realtor, so we had her check and see if they would rent it to us. And they said, no, we're going to sell it, that's it. We're not going to rent it to you. So Ann Foster bought that house and rented it to us. How much power is that? Will you rent this house now? Okay, will you take a check? And so I lived in that house for about 6 months or so. Melanie lived in it for a couple of years. Because, I forget to do the dishes, and sometimes I buy a gallon of apple juice, and then I drink maybe a cup of it and completely forget about it. So, Melanie and I are much better friends 2,000 miles apart. But while I was living there, she would sometimes wake me up in the middle of the night because she threw a paper for extra money. This is a woman with an amazing work ethic. So she would get up at 3 a.m. and go throw the Chronicle in Conroe in a rural area, and then she would go straight to the post office to deliver a postal route after that. And every once in a while she would be really exhausted, or maybe we'd gone out and had a little too much to drink, and so she wanted a companion to go with her. And we would go out and throw the paper. We would walk in, how I kind of dress like an orphan half the time. So imagine in the middle of the night with no thought or preparation of what you're going to wear. Just if it was cold, you put on as many layers as you possibly can. And we would walk in there laughing. Everywhere we go, we're mostly laughing. But we walk into this thing where all these people are moving like the dead. And they're rolling papers and they put them in bags. And this is hell on earth to them. They have to have this job. I don't know, whether it's your only job or your extra job, but believe me, getting up, and there's no day off when you throw a paper. There is no day off. The post service gives you Sunday, but you are screwed if you throw a paper, because that is every single day. So we would walk in there laughing hysterically over something ridiculous. And there's this little old man who, I can't even speculate anymore now that I'm over middle-aged as to how old he was, but to us he was ancient when I was 19 and she was 23. His name was Mr. Heath, and he had a speech impediment. And so he would say his name, Mr. Heath. And his table was right next to our folding table, and so as we were snorting and laughing and being ridiculous and throwing things at each other, he was over there muttering under his breath about those giggling girls. God damn which would make us laugh harder, and just caused the whole cycle of the whole time we were there. So we would leave there with all of our papers, and we'd immediately go to the Exxon station that was open 24 hours. And there was this fantastic woman that worked there who welcomed us. She was so excited when we came rolling in, and she would say over and over, "You so crazy! You so crazy!" And we would buy Bugles and the biggest Coca-Cola that they had. And we would hit the car and have to drive about 20 minutes out to a rural area and blast Super Freak. Possibly could. She had a sunroof with both windows open. screaming Rick James lyrics at the top of her lungs. During this period of time, I came up with the all-time best prank ever. So there's only a few of us here. If you ever read about this happening, I have finally done it. You know, around Christmas, there's lots of nativity scenes. There are so many baby Jesuses. And so I thought, what if we gathered them up and carefully marked them with their addresses, and then on Easter we left them on their porches. Forward 20 years, and Melanie's husband still brings this up as, in his opinion, the ultimate prank ever. Melanie and I would go, we had lots of gay friends, we're in theater, come on, and we would go to gay bars a lot. And so, in the spirit of other lessons learned as a grown-up, we would go to gay bars, and I can't remember if I drank that much then or not, but probably. But we would hang out. There was one gay bar that we went to called Mary's, which is a legend. It's a great bar, but there are certain areas that they don't let little straight girls into. So when our friends that we were with decided to go into those areas, Melanie and I would just sit outside on the curb on Westheimer. And she would just dare me to do stuff. Probably still her favorite game. But one of my clearest memories of that time is sitting out front of Mary's, both of us sitting on the ground in front of Mary's, and her saying, "My boots look dusty." And immediately, pull my sleeve up and start shining it. She was like, and around that time, this lady comes walking around from the alley, and Melanie it must have happened like right at the same time. Melanie decides she has to go to the bathroom, and this lady comes around right at the same time, which makes me think she was watching. And she comes over to me with an envelope, and she says, "I have to run somewhere, and there's a lot of cash in this envelope. And I am afraid that if I go where I am going, that someone will steal it from me. So if you would just hold on to it, I'll give you $200. If you'll just hold on to it, I'll be back in 15 minutes. Now, I am really not good at trusting my instincts. Usually, I'm the one-click button of trusting my instincts. Screw it, I'm going to do what I want. But some alarm bells went off, and I said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. But really, I wasn't worried that she was trying to scam me. I was afraid they would come out and we would have to go before she came back. No, I don't think we're going to be here long enough. And oh, okay, fine. And she went away. And so I'm telling everybody, oh, this lady wanted me, blah, blah. And they're like, are you kidding? You don't know that scam? You don't know that game? No, I had no idea. No. So I had this memory of my ex-business partner asking me in my exit interview, are you naive or stupid? Well, there's still consideration going on. But we would dress to the nines when we went to gay bars, and we would dress and put on so much makeup that I dare you to decide whether we were girls or very pretty boys. And it was always a score for us if a man came up to us and hit on us, because that meant that we'd crossed the line into very pretty boys. So as I was thinking about some of these stories, I realized that private jokes just don't translate. They just don't. And you know, you have that shorthand with the people that you spend the most time with, and you can look at them and you can say, where'd that deer come from? And they will immediately fall down laughing their asses off while the rest of the room is silent. The cabin hates us for that. When I go visit Melanie, he dreads it the whole time because he knows that we are going to somehow pick up the middle of a conversation that we had in 1987 as though no time whatsoever passed by. We're going to finish each other's sentences. We are going to speak in 2 words and the other one's going to completely understand what the other one means, and he's the third wheel. But you know what? It's my girl over there. So, of course, the next most influential relationship of my life would be my ex-husband. And we probably met within a few years of when I met Melanie. Got married when I was 21. We had our first baby when I was 22. But I really should have known that we were probably not ready to get married when we killed our money tree. Does anybody know about this tradition? At your wedding, someone will present you with a potted plant of some sort, and there's money clipped to it, and more people can clip money to it or whatever. But my dad gave us this beautiful little ficus tree, and it had like $100 and something on it, and we took it home, and we took all that money off, and it completely forgot about that tree. It sat in the corner of our bedroom, and the next time I looked at it, I was like, oh crap. It was completely dead. There was no saving it. But that became pretty much, that became the level of responsibility that we operated at for a really long time. We kept our kids alive. That was good. We would be so broke sometimes. Like we had roommates. Jackson was one of our roommates, and she and I we found at like a Bolero, whatever it was called then, Stop and Go. They had these cups for sale that for the entire summer you could get free refills if you just bought the cup. Free refills! And she and I were some coke drinking mofos. So we bought the cups, and it was a score. It was like $4 or something for all the soda you could drink for the whole year. So there was a Stop and Go right around the corner from our house, and probably, 3 times a day. We would pop in over there with these gigantic cups, waggle them at the guy. And we thought this was just a great deal, but one day I go in, and I'm like, hey, you gotta fill it up. And the guy goes, are you gonna buy anything? I got a free cup for you. I already bought it, right? I bought it. And he reaches under the counter, and he puts a gun on the countertop. Oh my God. I said, yeah, I'm not thirsty. So and these, once again, another lesson as a grown-up is that people hate when you take their free stuff. It was instant all over. And I ended up calling the corporate office and complaining about it, and he wasn't there so much anymore. So we gave it a little time to lull and then resumed our being married is difficult when, especially, I'd had a couple of fairly serious relationships before, if you can call anything before you're 21 a serious relationship. But Ricky and I had a hard time because Ricky's a neat freak. Everything in its place, and I stayed home with the baby, so it was my job to keep the house. And I like to read a lot, and so sometimes I forget about stuff, but I did my best. Honestly, I'm not saying that's good, but I did. So I would vacuum right before he got home, just like my mom was coming home or something, and then he would go, did you vacuum? Yes, I vacuumed. Did you see the things in the room? Of course I vacuumed. So it got to a point that I started just leaving the vacuum out. So that when he got home, he would see the vacuum out, and he would know that I had vacuumed. But instead, he would walk in and go, "You gonna put the vacuum away?" So that was some of our most contentious areas of our relationship. Was what an insane mess, and how much time can be sucked away by someone with ADHD, and maybe it's not, maybe it's just someone with, I don't know. I'm trying. My mother's encouraging me to stop using ADHD as a label and an excuse. So it's a good idea. That's smart. But when you read, and when you have a little baby and all that kind of stuff, time just, man, it's just gone. And before you know it, the dishes are piled up to here. And I'm still not good at it. And that's why I had 4 kids. But with my first child, I loved babies. My understanding is one of my very first words was baby. That if there were babies on the TV, that I would watch them enraptured by them. When we went to Sunday school, my parents would drop us off in our Sunday school class, and I would look out the door and wait for them to turn the hall to go to the church, and I would bust my butt into the nursery and hang out in the nursery for the entire time, holding, rocking, changing babies. So when I had my first baby and brought her home, I thought, I got this, I know what I'm doing. But they're there all day. They never leave. And when you do, usually they go with you. But I found it oddly embarrassing to talk to her out loud because she doesn't understand what I'm saying. And so it felt weird to talk to her out loud, other than the, oh, you can do it, no, we're gonna, you know, the chatter that you do. We're gonna change your clothes. Oh, look at that cute outfit. Oh, you wet, we should change your. I couldn't do that. It made me feel so uncomfortable, and I still haven't quite figured that out, because by the time I had my 4th kid, we were having conversations before he was even born. But it clearly was also an oddly solemn child. She was a tough crowd child. She did not smile until she was 3 months old. She was just sleepy. Gigantic brown eyes, completely, and not a blank expression. She was judging. So I would try to do that mom stuff and try to like, oh, they're good, okay. And she, oh no, that joke's really good. But so learning these lessons as you grow up, growing up is foisted upon you. You have no choice, really. I mean, unless your parents are rich as hell, or unless you're maybe developmentally slow, or you have a reason to not ever leave the house and get a job at some point and pay your rent, or maybe you just don't want to be with your parents anymore. That's what happens at a certain point. We want to live our own lives and stuff. But these valuable lessons that we learn. But my friend Andy, we used to do these things. Some of y'all have heard of it, called moose hunts. And we would go out to the country, and we would hang out by a big giant bonfire, and we would get trashed in some way, shape, or form. And one morning, I was sitting there all wrapped up in a blanket right by the bonfire, and everything's so beautiful, and all my friends are there. We're all hippies, and it's and my friend Andy walks up with a clear plastic bottle that's got some kind of powder in it. And he very casually kind of glances at me, and he goes, like that. And the world went white! There was an explosion like you would not believe, and for a minute I thought, this is what dead is like. And finally, everything settled, and my ears were ringing like crazy, and he's still standing there with an exploded white bottle in his hand. He had flash powder. He thought it would be funny. He thought it'd be a little poof. But no, you know that thing they tell you about not spraying aerosol into a fire because it might travel into the can and make it blow up? That happens. But that's a really good lesson on how fast every single thing can change. I really, really thought for a second that I was dead. I'm not. I had very similar incidents several years later, long enough away from that incident, I guess, that I had forgotten. But we went out to a friend's rural property and there was only about 6 or 7 of us, and a whole bunch of people were coming the next day. So we got there early, you know how people do that, and to try to get ourselves settled in. And we all were drinking and hanging out, and there are these little things called whippets. I don't know if y'all are familiar with it. It's nitrous oxide, it's laughing gas. And we were doing some whippets, and it had been the tradition that when you're done with the little whippet charger, the little canister thing, you just toss it in the fire, because we're going to scoop everything up later. We had been doing this for years. It would no reason to think anything could possibly go wrong.
Missiles.
Well, apparently at some point they changed the formulation of the little stopper thing. And when it got hot, it would melt. But when it cooled down, it would seal the top again. And if there was any moisture in it, as it heated up again, it would explode like an M80! We did not know this. So my favorite thing, I hate to be still when we're at these things. I'm usually up and around and moving around and doing stuff, and I love to tend the fire because I am an introvert. So that's my way of doing something, and so I'm kind of interacting, but not really interacting, and you know, people see that you're doing stuff, but you don't actually have to talk to them. So I am in the fire, I am doing something, I'm trying to move something, and the fire is, let's say, right here. And all of a sudden, gigantic explosion, this force lifted me up and threw me back onto my face. And I thought my face was gone. That had the concussive power of it had hit my face first. And my entire face was numb, and I was afraid to touch it. And I actually almost lost consciousness for a moment, laying in the dirt in my face where I had not even tried to stop myself. And I don't know if I was knocked out for a second or what, but it was absolutely insane. And I'm laying there, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna die in a second. And I felt like I was sinking into the ground, and you know, no, it's oddly peaceful to die. Maybe it's just when you think you are. But so I told myself very firmly, no, this is gonna ruin the party. It will ruin the party if you die right now. So you cannot die. So I sat up, and I am expecting to be drenched with blood and not have a face, which is going to scare people a lot. I turned back to my friends who are like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, I am not okay." And they all look at me and they're like, "You look fine." And I was very touched. I could feel that I did indeed have a face. And I'm like, "No, I am hurt. I am really, really hurt." And they're all like, "You look fine." And that's when I remembered that I'm the EMT. They are the people that go, "You look fine." And they go on with their life. I am the nurse. I am the person who takes care of all the emergency situations. This was probably one of the most helpless, terrifying seconds of my life to realize I was screwed if I really was hurt. Because I could not look at me. I could not check out all of my reactions and look at my pupils and all that kind of stuff. It turned out the next day that my nose swelled up and I had a hairline fracture on my nose. So that showed then. But I looked fine. So I stepped in the fire because I like it. Ricky started at some point calling me Mr. Bean. I hate it, but you know, sometimes I just do impulsive, stupid stuff, and like, I think, no, that's not when he started calling me, but what solidified Mr. Bean was, I was in nursing school. I had come home a little bit early, nobody was home. I think Ricky was picking up the kids. I had a couple hours by myself, I was so excited. And I go up to the porch and I realize I do not have my house keys anywhere. Oh man, and it's burning hot. It is so hot, and the idea of having to sit out here for 2 hours, to sit on the porch for a little while, and I'm like, surely there's a window open or something. So I go around the house, I'm trying all the windows, and none of them are open, there's no way for me to get in there. And as I come back around the house to go to the porch, I notice the window unit in my bedroom. And I think, I bet if I just lift that window up a little bit, I could slip that out and I could crawl in the window, and I am in the air conditioning, and I am gonna win this. So I went and grabbed a chair, and I go up and I'm trying to get it open, and I couldn't get it open, so I went and found something to lever it up a little bit. And just in this moment when this is happening, when I knew that I had made a mistake, I'm standing on a wobbly chair, an outside chair, obviously, because I couldn't go in the house to get one, and I lift this giant window unit out of the window. Not in, but out of the window where it is still attached to, it's plugged in. So it's on a leash in the house. And I just had to stand there because right also as I lifted it out, the window dropped. I'm sitting on a chair with probably a 150-pound air conditioner, and the window is down, and so I kind of hold it up against it and lean it on the windowsill, and I am trying to get my fingers in there, but y'all remember earlier when I said it was really hard to get the window open? It was still very hard to get the window open. So I'm standing there and I'm thinking, well, I only have about an hour and 45 minutes left. Okay. And trying to adjust myself to the idea that I'm really probably going to be standing here for the next hour and 45 minutes. And then I realized there was a little crack. And if I could somehow get a lever again to lever it up, and I realized that the bottom of it, you know, there's a little hook. I don't know how many of y'all dealt with window units, but I have a lot. And there's a little hook thing that holds them in to keep them from falling out. And when I had pulled it out, it had hooked to it. So it wasn't dropping. And so I very experimentally a few times went like this. And it didn't drop. And I was like, okay, that'll probably hold it for like 30 seconds while I run to get a lever. So I spy out where the good lever is, and I jump off the chair and I run to the lever, oh my gosh, and hold it. I will get it under there and I get it up and I'm able to, with my chest, push the window unit back into the room and climb through it. And I don't know why I did this. It's actually the second time I've done this celebration in my life. As I walk in the house, for some reason I start singing, all I want to do I don't know why. I don't know why. The other time I did it was when I had to break into my house through a window. So maybe it has something to do with that. I don't know. Stupid, embarrassing. After talking to Cassidy about telling stories about the kids and stuff, I decided that probably the best thing I could do, especially when they're in the audience, is to only tell stories about when they were too young to remember. And then they don't know if I tell you the truth or not. Lesson learned. When Clarity was born, my grandmother was in a nursing home. She had Alzheimer's, and we went to visit her when Clarity was about 6 months old. And this is another incidence of me realizing that I come from a really weird family. But my grandmother, we went in and she didn't really want to have anything to do with us. And she said she knew who we were. And yeah, I know who y'all are. And then she walked away. And my cousin Amy and I followed her while our parents hung out and talked to the nurses, because the last we had heard, she was sitting in a wheelchair, not even communicating with people at all. So we walk in and she's just cruising around, and Amy and I follow her into this little other room, and we say, so what's going on, grandmother? Because we had to call her grandmother because grandma made her sound old. What's going on, grandmother? And she goes, hasta la vista, hasta. And we're like, oh, you're speaking Spanish, okay, hasta. And she walks back out. So we decided it was a wash. And we all got together again. We left the unit. The unit locks automatically so Alzheimer's patients can't wander. And we go back and we're standing under the portico in front of this nursing home, and out strolls my grandmother. Hey! We're like, no, wait, why don't we all sit down here? And one of my aunts runs off to go tell one of the orderlies or a nurse or something that she's escaped. And we sit down, and I have Clarity on my lap, and I introduced her, and she said, what's her name? And I said, Clarity. And she goes, Clarity, you might as well have named her Pumpkinhead. That mean line runs true. I have to remember to save this for later because I ran out of cards and there's an extra little thing here. But having kids, they wake you up in the middle of the night and stuff. And have y'all seen that thing that's going around on Facebook about creepy things that kids say? Oh my God! Because one night Clarity's crying her ass off. She was about 18 months old, and I go in her room and I'm holding her, and I'm like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And she keeps staring at the corner of her room. And I, what's it? She goes, they're here. Holy Mother of God! Oh, that's the, she didn't swallow until she was 3 months old, but I worked that in earlier, so. Being a parent is frustrating, it's mind-boggling. You do not understand why they do the things they do. One of the things that Clarity also did was, if you put her in a room and close the doors, she would go straight to her bookcase and start tearing pages out of the books. We never understood it. We still don't understand what that had anything to do with it. But this is why people beat their children. What are you even thinking? Okay, I know you're 2, but you're thinking something. This it makes me laugh before I'm even done. Kids, I mean, okay. We have to be taught how to sit Indian style. Does anybody remember someone actually teaching them how? Wouldn't that be like the most natural thing in the world? And so if it's not, who thought of it? Indians apparently. I know it's not PC probably to call it Indian style. I'm not sure what it would call it.
Crisscross applesauce.
Oh, see, that's.
Yeah.
That's a sign of idiocracy right there. But you know, not only do your kids do creepy things, but your kids do really, really hilarious things. One of the things that Chloe did, Chloe's not here, she was here last time, so y'all can picture a tiny version of that. We had this pretty small living room, and there was a door from the kitchen here and a door to our bedroom. It was really small, it was not much wider than this stage. So this door goes to our bedroom, right? Chloe, Ricky and I are sitting in there. She's 2, and she comes in like this. I'm like, Chloe, what are you doing? She doesn't turn her head. She does not acknowledge her presence at all. Like, laughing hysterically. Chloe, what are you doing? She goes all the way across the room into our bedroom and never says a word. That is the weirdest kid I have. It was impeccable. It was performance. But I do say often that the quietly funniest kid I have is Cassidy, because and she does things where that are so subtle. But one of my favorite things was when she would go, when she was about 4-ish, she would go to the bathroom door and knock on it. And when you'd say, "Who is it?" she would say, "It's not me." And at first you think she's just being a dumb kid, and you're like, she did that on purpose. Cassidy and I asked her permission to tell stories about her. She was pretty much naked from the time she was born. She hated clothes, hated them, and she would run around shit all the time. Now, Clarity might have only worn underwear until she went to kindergarten, but Cassidy was like, I don't have any of it. And so one time we went camping, and Cassidy has been running all over this campground, but naked, completely nude. And I tell her, we're about to go do something, so you need to go get dressed. She's okay. So she goes into the tent, and she's trying to zip it down. She is completely nude. She's trying to zip it down. And I said, Cassidy, what are you bothering with that for? And she goes, someone might see me get dressed. I don't think that really that was the edge of Cassie's thing that we all quote. You know, you have the things that your kids say when they're little that you're going to say probably for the rest of your life. Cassidy would come bursting into whatever room anybody was gathered in and go, "And Michelle!" And then run out. We briefly lived with my mom when I was pregnant with Ryder. For the last about 4 months of my pregnancy, we lived with my mom. And we lived in a 2-bedroom townhouse with my mom. And it was me and 3.5 children. Ricky was still working in Houston, so he would come back and forth. He would stay with a friend during the week and come and be there on the weekends. And so it was interesting because any step upstairs, my mom was certain that they were upstairs. And it was an adjustment for little children to have to live with a cranky old woman. And so we moved out. Ryder was born. We were gonna, as soon as Ryder was born, we were moving out. And we moved into this house when Ryder was 1 week old. And we walked, and Cassidy, look, we were standing around, and we all, I don't know if all of us started this at the same time. We all just started walking through the house, and we all ended up in a freaking conga line. And Cassidy yelled out, "Say Bulbasaur, everybody! Bulbasaur!" There's a call and response of all the Pokemon. One of the most delightful moments of my entire life, and so we still do that whole thing. So maybe private jokes are translatable. You hear one of the screaming, "Say Bulbasaur, everybody!" Just say it. And you do have some parenting fails when you're trying to teach your kid something. Ryder was, let's say, what? Period. Where is Ryder?
Right here.
Huh? Oh, okay. Ryder was a busy child. So I would put him to bed, and he would immediately sit up, and I would say, "Head down," and he'd put his head down. And as soon as he set it back up, I'd go, "Head down," and he'd put it down. It became his favorite game. And I thought I was training him, and all I have to say is head down. But no, head down, you wait a second, lift it back up. Head down. But he hated going to bed. It was very difficult to get him to go to sleep. He slept in our room for, I don't know, maybe the first 6 months. And we did some shuffling around, put Chloe in with Clarity and put Ryder in with Cassidy in both beds. And Ryder, man, he would not stay in his bed. And one night, Ricky and I were watching TV, and it must have been midnight-ish. And I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. And I realized that, you know those little tunnels that are about this long that you buy for your kid? It's upright. And it's just sitting in the dining room. I remember that being in there. And then it moved. So we just waited. He would wait for us to be quiet until he escaped into the kitchen. And then, "Put it back to bed!" Inappropriate.
Wait, put that back up. We'll be the judge of that.
My dad asked me if he should come to my shows, if he might make me not tell certain jokes, and I said no. And actually, this was really funny, and my dad's twisted enough, he might find this hilarious. I do have a very open relationship with my kids. We talk. I do try to parent them, but we also have a pretty friendly, respectful relationship with each other, except for when there's a good joke. And we were doing Midsummer Night's Dream, and Ryder had a couple of roles in it, and I had a couple of roles in it, and there were like 20 people in this show. Cassidy had oh my God, she was so cute. She was a lion. If I had my phone, I'd take it. So, well, again, whatever. Oh yeah, you were in that. So we're backstage, and there's at least 20 people back in this little tiny dressing room. Once again, using this as a scale. Some of y'all have been in the dressing room over there, the place at which shall not be named. And Ryder had become friends with this guy named Josh. And Josh, I can't, what? Ryder, did he take his shirt off, or did you take your shirt off? What was the deal?
I took off my shirt.
Okay, he took off his shirt, and Josh took a picture. And they weren't like alone in a closet or anything. There was all these people milling around, getting ready. And Ryder yells out, "Mom, Josh is a pedophile!" why do you think I introduced y'all, honey? And the room went wild. Inappropriate. See, I told y'all. When I got back into theater, I probably weighed about the same amount for most of my adult life up until the time I got back into theater, and I think I was 39 when I got back in. And so we were decided to do the show Killer Joe. And in the role that I was going to play, I wore in the first scene, nothing but a wife beater. Nothing from the waist down, because there are lines referring to the fact that the woman is not wearing underwear, that she's just wearing this shirt. So I accepted the role gladly. I actually insisted that I get it because I was producing it. And I immediately went to one of those diet drug doctors and started taking diet drugs. And now I was taking Fentanyl, which my understanding is the friendly half of Fen-Phen. And so I would take Fentanyl in the morning, and I would take an Ambien to go to sleep at night. And I was getting shit done, man. I was losing weight like crazy, and I'd get up in the morning, raring to go, take my Fentanyl, go to work at the lucrative job that I had, and then go to the theater at night. And one night, my business partner and I went out to eat after a show, after something, I don't know, we were sitting there, and he goes, I'm worried about you. Why get shit done? He said, well, you're taking these drugs in the morning, you're taking these drugs to go to sleep, and it really worries me, and he goes, I don't want this to get out of hand. I said, who else took drugs to get stuff done? I mean, come on, who else? I mean, these are prescribed to me by a doctor, blah. And I said, Elvis, Janis Joplin. I said, what do these people have in common? Rock stars, every one of them. I got this. And about a couple weeks later, I quit taking it. Getting shit done right there. Okay, I'm tired now. No, but I'm so excited. I just thought of the story when Ryder and I went to go buy him some shoes. Speaking of being kind of mean parents, because I think I'm going to segue into my mother in a second. Oh, yeah. So Ryder, he buys these shoes he really loves, and they're attached together. And he puts one on, I'm like, you got to tie it. And so he goes down to tie it. And he's crouched down, tying the shoe. And I'm looking at him. I couldn't not. So I just nudged him. And he had both of his feet in the shoe. He could not separate his feet. He immediately went down to the ground. And I could not stop laughing. Stop laughing, and he just lays there. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And he just goes. Still funny. So I've been living with, my mom moved into my house on December 9th. Actually. I don't have to estimate. I know the date. She moved in on December 9th. My mom does not like, she likes computers only to play solitaire. Well, free cell, which she calls solitaire because it's a one-person card game. So it's still solitaire, right? Okay, I have to give her that. She calls the internet the Big E. And I was like, we're on the phone and trying to coach her through something. I said, what browser are you using? And she said, I don't know. I said, well, what do you click on to get to the internet? She goes, the Big E. Oh, okay. You're using Internet Explorer. What? It's the Big E. So she doesn't have a PC at our house yet. We all, have our own devices because it's the 21st century. So she's going to be looking for a job soon. Though she did put it off because she wanted to wait till after Christmas because there's just so much unpacking and cleaning to do because we are filthy animals at our house. But it's amazing how, and I remember when when I moved in with her when I was pregnant with Ryder, and so I was 30 then, and it was okay, and I knew it was temporary and all that kind of stuff, and I felt like we did really well and had a good, equitable relationship. But this time, I feel like I am 15 years old, and because we moved into her territory before, see? And this time she's moved into our territory, but she's gonna make it hers. She's got to be the alpha female, and I know where I get it from. I do. I come by it honestly. But I find myself hiding from her sometimes. And sometimes, like, we go sit either in the back patio or on the front porch, depending on the weather, and smoke a cigarette together, and it's classy. And we hang out there, and all of a sudden I realize I don't want to hear it anymore. And so I will say something like, "Oh, I've got to go finish organizing my closet." And that's a good, sensible use of my time. So she says, "Okay, see ya." "Oh man, I have got a ton of socks to sort. I'm going to go up to my room." So I have so much work to catch up on, guys, because I don't do that. I actually started a secret group called Life with Mother, so if any of y'all, a lot of y'all are members of it, where I tell amusing or not so amusing anecdotes. I have found that my mom she could be very wise about things. I mean, she has been on this planet for 70 years, and she has lived every single day of those years. She has to have learned a couple of things. I hope we all do. But I found that when people say you're wise, people will tell you all day long, you're smart, you're smart, you're smart, until you say something that they disagree with. And then you're stupid. Instead of, then thinking, God, wow, the way that you arrived at that idea is so brilliant, but the way you arrived at this idea, that was dumb. That was completely stupid. So that's been fascinating to me lately. My ex told me, when you're in one of those really weird limbo relationships where you spend all kinds of time together and you sleep together and you're like texting, talking on the phone all the time, but you're not dating. So when it ends, you're like, what do I call them? That's my ex. It does not, what do you call him? So that just pisses me off every time I start a story about that. So my friend said, I'm so wise about some things, but that I miss things that are right under my nose. He might have said that, or 2 feet away from me, or right under my nose, something like that, because my brain fried right when he said that. But I think when someone says something, or someone's missing something that you see, isn't that the moment that you're supposed to enlighten them? Isn't that part of the whole human relationship thing with each other? That when you notice that someone's so far off the right track that you're like, hey, did you know about this thing? And it's like, it could be the missing piece of the puzzle that changes their entire life. I've been talking to a friend of mine about how being alone in a room of people, I was talking about how, we talked about this in was it the last show or the first one about being alone? That being alone in a room full of people, you're alone, you can be alone in so many odd situations. It's very rare to completely lose that alone feeling, and he said maybe that's part of the point, is being alone together, is when you recognize that you're alone. And when my ex-friend or my friend said that whole thing about that, and that kind of came together for me, the idea that that's the moment. You're going to miss that moment if you think that someone's missing something and you let them in on it. That's one of those moments when all of a sudden y'all are clicking and you're less alone, right? So don't do that. Don't let people miss stuff. Let's see. Oh yeah, the ant and the grasshopper. I don't know why this occurred to me a couple of nights ago. I'm laying in bed, trying to sleep, trying to sleep, which I do a lot of because my brain's going. And I remembered the story of the ant and the grasshopper. Now there's a lot of stuff in the news, and maybe mostly in the artsy-fartsy people's news feeds, about artists getting paid. And not doing art for free and stuff like that. And I don't know why this segued to my brain, the story of the ant and the grasshopper. And that grasshopper, he was dancing, he was singing, he was fiddling, warm little place. He was probably gonna fiddle and dance and sing for them the whole time. So that's what I think about that story, and I just had to throw it in there because that was the one that I told y'all to remind me that I had to tell. So anyway, Leighzaland is not about Leighza. Leighzaland is about how each and every one of us have our own world, and we all rule our own world, and that's what I want everyone to take away from this. You be your queen, and you be your king, and take your world. Thank you, guys.